And oftentimes we ask ourselves the question, why me? Why me? But we all, why have we deserved the blessings that God has given us? Why have we been showered with blessings from heavenly places? Yes, we've been given things that have been difficult in our lives. I've shared this with the audience before, but one of the most difficult things that I've ever had to deal with has been the living with a disabled son and providing for him and caring for him. And unless you have to live with someone who has a disability, there's no way you can really relate to someone who has, I must say. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven. Blessed are they that hear the word of God and keep it. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life, and may enter in through the gates into the city. Luke 11:28, Matthew 5:3-12, and Revelation 22:14. Well, whenever we do have to go through tribulations and suffering, and we see other people suffer that we love, that's one of the most difficult things, is seeing someone else suffer that we love. Can you imagine what it must have been like for Mary to see her son hanging on the cross? And those other people who had followed Christ. He was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities, and by his stripes we are healed. We're told that he laid his life down for us. Good morning, Rick. Good to see you this morning. Hope you're having a good morning. For those of us who have worked with persons with disabilities, he gives us a whole different perspective on life. I not just have lived with my son over the last, he's 42 years now, and he was diagnosed at about 19. Welcome aboard, Howard Jett, and welcome aboard, Andre Barros. Good to have you with me this morning. But I also have worked with, I worked in a unit one time, which was, and now as I look back on it, this was merely a preparation for what I would have to face with my son. But a lot of people don't understand, but the brain is a very strange organ in that it is very sensitive. It doesn't take very much for the brain to get out of kilter. I can tell you that. Welcome aboard, Scott Calvert. I worked in a unit one time, and it was it was children who were autistic. And that was quite an eye-opener for me, to see children rocking all day long, rocking. They would not allow anyone to touch them. They just rocked. I also have worked in a psychiatric hospital with patients who had all kind of brain maladies. And when you're around these folks, it is very eye-opening. Most people live in what I call a spectrum of normalcy, whatever that is. But when you're put in an environment where you're working with people who can't cognitively process information properly, cannot function, do not have proper responses to emotions, who are it is very eye-opening. You say, well, why are you bringing all of this up? Well, most people don't want to deal with the abnormal. Most people don't want to talk about the fact that there are people out there who will never have a normal life. They only want to see and deal with people who are highly successful. They want to deal with people who are engineers and doctors and lawyers. And they don't want to deal with the other side of life. But Jesus Christ dealt with the down and out. Jesus Christ was touched with the feelings of our infirmities. Jesus Christ did not ignore those who were suffering. Jesus Christ said, "Come unto me, all ye that are weary and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly of heart." Most people just, I've shared with the audience before that when we were before managed Mark's situation through slowing down his dopamine productions in his brain, and when he would have difficulties, I remember one time we went over to my mother's for a family reunion, and he was having a very difficult time, and other family members were there. And I remember my mom says, "Can't you just put him down in the basement?" Yeah. That's what most people's idea of, that's what most people's idea to do with people is just put them over here on a shelf, put them in an institution. Don't deal with them. My wife, when we were told that the condition of Mark after the onslaught of his illness, when we were told by a doctor that we should just put him in an institution, my wife looked at me and she said, "I believe this meeting is over." The idea of just taking someone and out of sight, out of mind, that's kind of the idea. When we are suffering, when we are dealing with issues in our lives that we need outside. God doesn't put us on a shelf. It isn't out of sight, out of mind with Jesus Christ. He is touched with our infirmities. And that's why he says that I was hungry and you fed me. I was in prison and you visited me. Many of the so-called churches today treat people like my son like dung, because, and I'm not faulting them. I'm just saying they don't know how to deal with someone who is not in the range of normalcy. They don't know how to deal with someone who has bouts of not being able to properly cognitively process information according to their norms. Jesus Christ knows how to deal with everyone because he created everyone. That includes the autistic, that includes the Down syndrome, that includes paraplegics, that includes people with Parkinson's disease, and every imaginable kind of disease. Jesus Christ knows all about them. He created them. And he's omniscient. He sees all things. He knows all things. He knows what we're going through. And people can malign you and lay all kind of charges against you. My sister said the reason that my son has the condition he has is because of the way he was raised. A lot of people say a lot of hurtful things, okay? I had one person recently infer that that it was wrong to take money for the government for Mark's disability. You know, people don't realize that if a person cannot work, they cannot function. We've tried to put Mark in work programs and so on. And if your brain is not working, your brain is not working. That's all I can say. And there's many times Mark's brain works very well. That's the strange thing about it. The reason I'm sharing this with you is to some way show that there are needs, people have needs out there that are far beyond what you may ever have experienced. You may have a problem with a boss, or you may have a problem with a coworker, or you might have a problem with a relative. But is your brain working right? Is your brain functioning? Are you able to walk? Are you able to see? Are you able to hear? Are you able to move about freely? Are you able to think clearly? Are you able to write in a rational manner? Are you able to type? Are you able to speak in rational terms and sentences? So these are the things that a lot of people are unable to do. Welcome aboard, Sam Davis. So my heart goes out to the disabled because I think primarily because I have, had firsthand experience. I don't fault those who don't understand about those with disabilities. But I would recommend that you get out of your comfort zone and relate to those who have disabilities. I recently was coming out of a Walmart and I had my cane and I saw this guy get out of his car, probably in his 80s, and he had a cane. And he saw I had a cane. And he said to me, "We have these canes going, don't we?" He could relate to me and the pain associated with why we're using canes. I asked him if he wanted to race. He got a kick out of that. Well, this morning, let us not forget the poor. Let us not forget the disabled. Let us not put them on the shelf. Let us not forget those who are struggling with different maladies. Let us reach out to them and encourage them, give them comfort. Let us not just be self-centered. Let us not give a blind eye to those who are hurting. When I see a lot of people, I shared this with some people. I was in a meeting one time with a bunch of pastors, and I was appalled. I think it was a test. I don't know if it was premeditated or not, but these preachers began to talk about how many times they had been taken advantage of by people in the community asking for money. Scammers, they called them. And I just thought, you know what? The very people you're supposed to be ministering to, you're running in the ground. Jesus didn't come to call the righteous, but the sinners to repentance. And people say, well, there are a lot of people out there that are just takers. Yes, there are. Believe me, I have rental property. I know all about that. Okay. But you know what? Let's not be so quick to just cast people off. Let's not be so quick just to cast people off. If someone is standing out in the cold and the rain and it's 30 degrees and they're holding a sign saying, I'm homeless and hungry, are we just to pass that person by and just have no feelings at all for the person? Say, well, they're just scamming. They're making more money than you are. Well, I'm not standing out in 30-degree weather in the rain. I know that. And I've heard people say, well, they're out there every day, scamming people and all that. Well, my experience has been when I stop and it doesn't matter how much money I give them. That's not the issue. When I stop and give those people the time of day, they are very, very appreciative. And most of them are very humble people. They've been humbled. And so you can knock those people in the ground all you want to. But I'm here to tell you that if it wasn't for the grace of God, we would be standing out there with the sign saying homeless and hungry. Well, I didn't know I was going to go on a rant this morning. And I know that people will accuse me of preaching a social gospel and all that stuff. That's all right. Go ahead and accuse me. I've been accused of many things. But let us remember Christ and his ministry and what he did here on the earth. His ministry was to the poor, the downhearted, the sick. He healed the sick. He gave sight to the blind. You say, well, you're not God. You can't give sight to the blind. No, I can't. I can't. But I can remember what Christ did. And with the grace of God, I can show some compassion and some thoughts for other people that are going through difficulties. So let us remember this morning, and I hope you have a good weekend. May the good Lord be with you is my prayer. God bless. Hello, just saw you, Epistle. I'm sorry I missed you. I just came over to the YouTube side, and you're a blessing as well. And you say you have a disability, you know what that's like. Well, I want to just let you know that you are in our prayers. Our thoughts are with you. We love you in the name of Christ. We bless you. And we ask that God's blessing would be with you today in a special way. God bless you, Epistle.